ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. We are reading from the book Pramana Vicara, an inquiry into the nature of knowledge by Swami Dayananda, Saraswati. We are beginning a new section, Anupalabdhi, absence. There is yet another means of knowledge called Anupalabdhi, a means that helps you know the absence of a given object. An object is absent at a given time in a given place. To say so, the object should have been known at another time and at another place. This knowledge of absence of a known object at a particular time in a particular place is not based upon pratyaksha or anumanam. It is to be gained by a different pramanam. That I do not have a flower in my hand now is knowledge of absence. This is an important knowledge. In all disciplines of research, Arthapatti and Anupalabdhi are employed extensively. Anupalabdhi is knowledge of absence, although there is no such thing as absence. Knowledge is based on sensory data. The senses can gather data only of things that exist. I can only see objects that reflect light. If the object does not reflect light or is itself not a source of light, there can be no visual perception. Eyes can see only in terms of light. This is why light is often used as an example in the teaching of Vedanta. When the Upanishads say, in whose light an object becomes visible, they mean that either the object itself is a source of light, bhati, and reveals itself to the eyes, or it shines in the light that is reflected by the light, anubhati. Eyes cannot see without light. That fact is often taken as the basis for extension. Just as the eyes do not see without light, so too there is no knowledge without light. Tasya nimilanadi samaye king jyoti. Tasya nimilanadi samaye king jyoti. What is the light when the eyes are closed? You see what is going on in the world because there is light. You see what is going on in the mind because there is, etc., because there is light. That light is referred to as the light of lights, Jyotir Jyoti. It is not physical like the light of the sun. It is the light of consciousness, the light of all light. There is a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, shloka number 17. Jyotishamapi tajyotistamasah paramuchyate jnanam gneyam jnanagamyam hridi sarvasya vishthitam. That, within parenthesis, gneyam brahma, the light of lights, is said to be beyond ignorance. It is knowledge. It is that which has to be known. It is that which is arrived at by knowledge, and it is present in the minds of all. It is not physical. So that light is referred to as the light of lights, Jyotir Jyoti. It is not physical like the light of the sun. It is the light of consciousness, the light of all lights. Eyes can only see objects that reflect light. They cannot see absence. An object that is absent is not going to reflect light. Therefore, you cannot say that perception is a means of knowing that something is absent. Example, I have no flower in my hand. You are not saying there is no flower at all. There is no total absence of flower. Whenever you are negating a flower, you are not negating the flower totally. You are talking of its absence in a particular place at a particular time. You cannot negate the flower because you have seen a flower sometime somewhere and can recognize the object. There is no total absence of flower. It is there somewhere, but it is not here. Therefore, you have to point out the quote unquote where, quote unquote when, and also quote unquote what of the absence. The locus and time is called adhikaranam, and the absence of what you are talking about is called pratiyogin. The locus and time is called adhikaranam, and the absence of what you are talking about is called pratiyogin. Even elephant is absent in my hand. There are so many things absent. The sun is absent, the moon is absent, earth is absent, and so on. But you do not have knowledge of absence, abhava, as such. If you had knowledge of abhava, it would mean that the object exists but not now and here. There is no question of its total absence. In India, there is one type of Shastra called Tarka Shastra or Nyaya Shastra. They build up a trellis of words. They say there is abhava, absence. For that absence, they give adjectives also as prag abhava, prior absence, pradvamsa abhava, later absence, anonya abhava, mutual absence, atyanta abhava, total absence. We know adjectives are necessary to distinguish one thing from another from the same species. Here abhava is a species and it is given adjectives. Abhava means non-existence, absence. How can a non-existent thing have adjectives? However, based upon their tarka, they create a system of philosophy. They build a whole philosophy out of nothing. That is the brilliance. Some people get hooked despite the non-tenability of the basis for the logic. There can be a bhava of only an existent thing, and that too only in a given place at a given time. There is no flower in my hand now. Place and time are important. You cannot say there is no flower at all. In that statement, you use the word flower. There is a meaning for that word. Once you say there is a meaning, you cannot say it is absent. It is there somewhere, but absent here now. One may ask, Swamiji, how about the dodo? The footnote here, dodo is a bird like a duck, very slow moving. This is an example of upamanam. It is the national bird of Mauritius. It is now extinct. In fact, this gave rise to the common expression, dead as a dodo. Dodo is the national bird of Mauritius and it is now extinct. So there is absence of dodo. Yet, dodo exists as a word with a meaning and you talk of its absence in Mauritius and elsewhere. However, you cannot talk of its absence if it is something that never existed. It is an existent dodo and the word has a meaning. You do not find a word now fulfilling the meaning of the word dodo. That is why we call it extinct. If dodo is forgotten completely, you will not talk about its absence anyway. Nobody talks about the absence of gagabugain because nobody has seen gagabugain existing. Therefore, there is no absence of gagabugain. There is no such thing as atyanta bhava, absolute absence. One particular school of thought in Buddhism talks of shunya, absence of anything as the truth. However, there can be no such thing as shunya. When you ask them what is shunya, they have to say, truth is shunya. Shunya is, it exists. If so, it is then not shunya, non-existent. Upalabdhi means perception. Upalabdhi means perception. Anupalabdhi is the perception of absence. It is an important means of knowledge that is counted separately as a pramana. Again, upalabdhi means perception. Anupalabdhi is the perception of absence. It is an important means of knowledge that is counted separately as a pramana. Why do we count it separately? You cannot call it pratyaksha because you cannot see the absence. There is no direct perception pratyaksha, although it might look as if it is direct. You're only seeing my hand, but the object whose absence you're talking about is a flower. This yellow flower in my hand reflects light. If the eyes are not blind or color blind, you get a complete picture of the yellow flower. When I put it down, you do not see the absence of flower. You see the hand and the hand alone. Let us take another example. A man eats in a restaurant with his family. When the bill is present, he looks into his pocket. Money is not there. There is no money to pay the bill. He does not see the absence, he sees only the pockets. There was money in the pocket, now it is not there. His pocket was picked. He has to send the family home and do dishes for 2 days. Knowledge of absence is very important. In bacterial research, for example, they need to determine whether certain bacteria exist or not. This absence of particular identifiable bacteria is very important in research. So the knowledge of both presence and absence is very necessary, especially in research. In Vedanta also, we often use the knowledge of Anvaya Vyatireka, presence and absence. In Vedanta also, we use the knowledge of Anvaya Vyatireka, presence and absence. Absence is as good as presence in terms of the importance of this knowledge. We have seen it is not pratyaksha. Because it is not pratyaksha, inference is not possible, neither one-step inference nor many-step inference, as all inferences are based upon the data gathered by pratyaksha. How do you recognize absence? Through the knowledge, though the knowledge of absence is not pratyaksha, it is based on pratyaksha. In some cases, it may be based on inference also. An electron, a micro-quantum object cannot be seen. Whether it is a particle or a wave can only be inferred. When the observer wants to measure the position, it behaves like a particle. When the observer wants to measure not the position but the velocity, then it behaves like a wave. So depending on upon the intention of the observer, his sankalpa, whether he wants to know the position of the photon or its velocity, it behaves like a particle or a wave. The presence of particle gives it a position and its absence waviness. This is a case of detection of absence by inference, not by pratyaksha. Nobody sees an electron, and by inference nobody can miss it. Therefore, inferential data can also be used as a basis for knowing the presence of an object at a given time, at a given place. Presence of an object has certain features. Absence is something different. Absence is considered separately because there is no object involved. You do not see an object's absence directly, even inferentially. Therefore, you require a separate means of knowledge. That pramanam is called anupalabdhi. Again, upalabdhi is perception, and then the anupalabdhi is the perception of absence. Next section. Knowledge is not Purusha Tantra, only action is Purusha Tantra. We now have these 5 means of knowledge, all of which are exposed to the world. Anything that can be objectified can be known through these 5 means of knowledge. We go about gathering knowledge, and this result, pramana phalam, is jnanam, the knowledge. Who has that knowledge? You, the knower, jnata, pramatha. You own that knowledge. Jnanam, knowledge, does not take place dependent on the knower. What you need is the faculty of knowing and the object of knowledge. The knower, along with his will, has no role to play. The knower is there only to own the pramana phalam of jnanam. Based upon this alone, can the nature of self-knowledge, Brahma Jnanam, be understood? The absence of this knowledge is the cause of the error, the mistake, for people to claim it is beyond words, beyond mind. Knowledge requires a prameya, a jnaya, an object of knowledge, and a pramanam, an appropriate means of knowledge. Human will is not involved. That means you do not decide. If you do not decide, then what is your position? The object in my left hand is a flower, a yellow rose. In my other hand is also a flower, a lotus. And I say, what is in my left hand is a lotus, and that in my right hand is a yellow rose. It is close in that both are flowers, but not correct. So when I say this is a lotus and this is a rose, you would say, no, Swamiji, it is the other way around. How do you know? You are sure because you see them using a valid pramanam, your eyes. You have pramana prapta jnanam, pramanena nischita jnanam. You can oblige Swamiji by calling them differently. The knowledge is already ascertained by a pramanam. Your will has no role to play. The knower is only enjoying the fruits of this pramanam. He knows that this is a lotus flower. Now he can make use of it, he can offer it at the altar or offer it to someone as a token of welcome, care and love. There is no other way of knowing this flower. However, the knower can decide how to make use of it. After the pramanam has done this job and the knower has gained the pramana phalam, his will can come into play. He can decide, I will give this flower to Bhagavan. There should be no confusion between pramana-based knowledge and will-based action. Pramana-based knowledge is Pramana Tantram. Will-based knowledge is Purusha Tantram. Purusha is a footnote for Purusha. In Sanskrit, Purushkara means will. Purushkara means will. So Purusha here is the human will, and Purusha Tantra means will-based. Will-based. Action, whether it is mental, oral or physical, manasa, vachika, kaika, is Purusha Tantra, will-based. Jnanam, knowledge, is as true as the object of knowledge. The pramata, the knower, goes about in the world without his will, playing any role in gathering knowledge. In Sakshi Pratyaksha, you become a witness to your own Antakarana. You notice any emotion that arises in the Antakarana. You tell a psychologist, I have this fear because of which I always get angry, etc. The specialist tries to bring it to the surface by asking questions and asking you to talk it out. He comes to recognize the connection between the background and the present emotional condition. Similar things have happened to the other people often enough and have been reported. By categorizing and generalizing them, a body of knowledge has been created. This body of knowledge, called psychology, is thus a growing knowledge that is based on Sakshi Pratyaksha. Sakshi Pratyaksha knowledge is also useful to study your Antakaranam and remove wrong values and inculcate good values. All these fields of knowledge are available to the Indriya senses, as we have seen. These can be studied and gained by using one or more of the 5 pramanams we have discussed. What about subjects not available to the Indriyas, called Atindriya Vishayas? Clearly another pramanam is required for knowledge of these subject matters. We look upon the Vedas, all 4 of them, as that pramanam, the 6th pramanam, to know things that are not available for the 5 pramanams. Next time we'll begin with the section Veda as a pramanam. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.